right, I'm going to call this meeting to order for the Downtown Kiwanis Club. One of the things that we're going to do this morning is candle lighting in lieu of the thought of the day. So since the founding of the Downtown Kiwanis Club in August 17th, 1916, we've been blessed to have members of exceptionally strong character and outstanding business community leadership skills and a commitment to service to our community and its citizens. It's been a long tradition of our club to recognize members who have passed away during the prior year. While lighting a ceremonial candle, we'll read a brief narrative regarding one of our fallen friends. Once all the candles have been lit, we will pause for a moment of silent reflection regarding the service and friendship of our deceased Kiwanians. So Greg, do you want to start with Phil Nicely?
Right here?
If you go behind
Behind what?
behind the table.
Here's his candle, so no, just light it.
Ready? Phil Nicely is remembered today. He was a friend of mine as well, and a colleague. We had a lot of adversarial zoning cases, but we always respected each other, and we fought some big battles like in '96 and Meridian. But everything's better because of the compromise that he and I worked out. Phil was also a graduate of Shortridge High School and went to law school in Michigan. And he was, however, a Butler Bulldog because I would see him, pardon me, at all the games. So Phil is remembered today as having served in the Indiana National Guards and a member of this group and an attorney for Bose McKinney. He taught at the McKinney Law School as well. So I remember him today as a very special person who I could disagree with and still be a friend. So he fits right into Kiwanis and maybe a better angel of ourselves.
Okay.
Remembering Phil Nicely.
All right, I am going to light the candle for Dick Boyd. And Dick I got to know when I first joined Kiwanis. Dick was kind of lived a little bit of a parallel life to what my mom did. So he was born in 1930 in Indianapolis, and he passed on November 11th. He was a graduate of Broad Ripple High School, attended Hanover, spent 2 years with the Air Force in the Far Eastern Theater, and returned to Hanover and joined Lambda Chi fraternity there, and completed a degree in psychology. Started his career in Philadelphia with the Shaw Walker Company, which is a large maker of office furniture, and then worked for a while with RJE, whereas my mom was with Business Furniture, so they were kind of competitors in that business. He retired in 1993 and worked part-time at RJE at that point. He was active in the Boy Scouts, Speech and Hearing, Shriners, Masons, and the Children's Bureau. He joined Kiwanis in 1964, which is the year I was born, following footsteps of his father Rex, and who was a member from 1944 to 1955. He served on the Golf and Key Club committees and was the club secretary for 4 years. He was a 1998 Kiwanian of the Year, Ruby K. 10 new member pin, and a George S. Hickson Fellow with Kiwanis International, and a member of our club for 38 years. He returned to Indy in 2018 after living in the Villages in Florida. So I want to remember Dick for his great contributions.
All right, thank you. I'm here to read about Dr. Gene Cease, longtime member, longtime citizen of the city, There's a few things about Gene that he did in his life. He was born June 28th, 1931, passed away peacefully on May 30th, 2024. He served 5 rural churches in central Pennsylvania while at Juniata College. Completed his degree in 3 years and married Joanne, a church organist. Earned his doctorate and taught at the University of Pittsburgh. In 1968, they moved to Indy. He presided over what was then Indiana Central College and now University of Indianapolis. And he was the one that actually got the name changed to the University of Indianapolis. So he's a very forward-looking fellow. He chaired Cease, Gehrig and Associates from 1988 until he retired in 2022. He was a key player in both the creation of Martin University, the only predominantly black institution in the state, and cable TV cell phone service in the city. I didn't know that. He was a 33-degree Mason in the Scottish Rite. He had the Sagamore of the Wabash Award from 4 Indiana governors. Past moderator for the Stanley K. Lacey Leadership Series, Class X. Indiana State Fair Commission Chair for 3 governors, over 9 years. I don't know how the guy got anything done. Past board chair of the 500 Festival, Community Hospital of Indianapolis, Holiday on the Circle, the Downtown Public Safety Task Force, and vice chair of the ICVA. Served as TV host for Portraits, interviewing outstanding Hoosier personalities, which I know Greg is familiar with. Lectured and traveled the world. Held 5 earned degrees and honorary doctorates from 5 universities. Joined Kiwanis in 1969. Received the Civic Award in 1974 and served as its president in 1977. Implemented the plan for the Abe Lincoln Awards and screening of candidates with Bob Briggs and Don Earnhardt in 1976. Regular attendee of the IOZO's Monday lunches. I might say along with his lovely wife Joanne, who we were very fortunate to get to know over the past 4 or 5 years. His favorite expression was that it was dangerous to drive a car focused on the rear view mirror, keep looking forward. Dr. Cease committed his life to education and service to others. He passed away on May 30th of 2024. As we all know, David Cease is his son. And he lost his mother. Gene's wife passed away about 8 weeks after Gene passed. No health conditions, just time to go, I guess. So they were married for 71 years. So that's Gene Cease.
Would everyone please stand and join me in a moment of silence and reflection? As we extinguish each candle, our friends will not be forgotten. Their service to the community will be missed. Their lifelong contributions will serve as shining examples of what it means to be a Kiwanian, and they have inspired us all. For it is the greatest tribute to the memory of these fallen friends and all those before them that we are dedicated to changing the world, one child and one community at a time. Okay, thank you. So as Gene said, we need to be driving and looking forward. So with that, I'll make the announcements of what we have upcoming. The Kiwanis Foundation of Indianapolis is distributing $58,630 to 13 local organizations serving youth this month. We'll be featuring them at upcoming meetings, and thanks to the Prize Patrol for joining me in delivering the grant checks. Laura Berry, Mary Bulk, Mike Halstead, Laura Holloway, Graham Honecker, Art Kordroff, Bob Lowry, and Trina Raudebush. So that's a fun job. Wendy wants a reminder to everybody that our Abe Lincoln Committee invites you to a spectacular 50th anniversary event at Primo on Friday, February 7th. So I hope everybody has that on their calendars. We're gonna offer a big shout out to Trent Cowles with Rockefeller Capital Management and Scott Harkness with Norris Choplin and Schroeder for their $2,500 event sponsorships. We are seeking Kiwanians to serve as hosts seated at the table with each school. So if any of you is willing to do that, please do so. Individual tickets are $35, or you can choose to sponsor a school's table for $150, which includes one ticket. We'll be featuring the stories of resilience from 21 Marion County seniors and providing 5 four-year renewable scholarships totaling $64,000 and another $8,000 in gift cards to the Circle of Valor honorees. A few stats that I think are impressive and I think speak to our commitment to this. Since 1976, the Kiwanis Club of Indianapolis has recognized 903 students as in the Abe Lincoln program. Through the support of the Kiwanis Foundation of Indianapolis, we have awarded $1,346,100 in scholarships to 200 students. Since 2015, we've awarded an additional $55,650 to the 193 Circle of Valor honorees. So it's pretty impressive numbers, and it really speaks to what a special club we are to be able to do that. Okay, please save the third Thursday monthly on your calendars now for our Columbia Club lunches. We'll be up on this floor most of the time. I think there's maybe a couple where we'll be back downstairs, but generally this is now our home here at the Columbia Club. We'll have Zoom options on the first and second Thursdays, along with lunch bunch or social supper to connect in person on those weeks. And then I'm going to be finding some additional opportunities from some nonprofit breakfasts, lunches, or service events, and we'll get those added to the calendar. You can also find the upcoming dates for events section in the event section on our website. And we'll be adding a Google Calendar and working on how to add that to something that you can subscribe into your phone to make that easy to get them on your calendar. But here's some highlights. On the 20th, the lunch bunch at Iozo's. Roger's the big man on that one. Thursday, the 23rd, we're having Civic and Career Awards Social Supper at George's Neighborhood Grill on Binford. We'll be honoring Trina Raudebush and Duke Haddad. Please RSVP to Kelly by Monday for that. On Thursday the 30th, Luke Rinderman, director of the Speedway Murders, will be on our Zoom presenter. Tuesday the 3rd, social supper at Tinker Street. RSVP to Mary Bulk for that. It's one of my favorite restaurants. Thursday, the 20th of February, Kiwanis Legion of Honor, 25, 30, 35, 40, and 50-year awards. And a speaker from the Outdoor Youth Exploration Academy will be here at the Columbia Club. And Saturday, the 22nd, the Indiana District Mid-Year Conference at the Renaissance Indianapolis North will be taking place in Carmel. The keynote speaker will be from the Indiana Youth Institute. And then Mary Lechner introduces the Possibility Project.
I think I've heard this first since you've done this one.
Oh, yeah. We want to welcome Mary to our Kiwanis Club. So, just so you know you're official here, we really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's great to be a new member with this club. New to Kiwanis, I started working for the Kiwanis Children's Fund last year back in April, and hadn't really been involved with Kiwanis before that, and just really saw the mission of Kiwanis, and I've always had a passion for helping children in the community and youth development, so thought I'd join this wonderful club, and it's been really great so far, and everyone's been so nice and welcoming, so thank you so much. But on that note, since I do work for the Kiwanis Children's Fund, I wanted to share a little bit about the new campaign that we are doing. So many of you are probably familiar with the Eliminate campaign that the Kiwanis Children's Fund did, which incredibly helped eliminate neonatal tetanus in 58 countries worldwide, and that was because of the amazing work that Kiwanians did. And the Kiwanis Club of Indianapolis was very crucial and was a leader in the district for helping to raise money for that. So after the conclusion of the Eliminate campaign, the Kiwanis Children's Fund wanted to decide what's next, what's the next big campaign we want to do, and we decided on the Possibility Project, which is our very first campaign to support Kiwanis clubs and the children that we serve through service projects. So you think of all the amazing service projects that this club is able to do and the children that we impact. Many Kiwanis clubs here and throughout the world have a great need in their community to serve children, but don't have the funds or the resources to do so. And so this is the Possibility Project. The Kiwanis Children's Fund grants out money to clubs that want to do a service project to serve more children. And so the Possibility Project, our goal is to fundraise $25 million over 5 years to impact 10 million children worldwide through Kiwanis Club service projects. We know that it only takes $2.25 to impact one child through our grant programs. And so we hope that Kiwanis clubs come together like they did during the Eliminate project, but now we're able to give back to Kiwanis clubs to do more in their communities worldwide. So we're very excited about this. I'm happy to share more over the next several months, and I hope that, like the Eliminate project, that the Kiwanis Club of Indianapolis will support us in this campaign and be another leader like we were during the Eliminate project to support other Kiwanis clubs. I also want to let everybody know that the Kiwanis Day of Giving is coming up on February 25th. It's $2.25 because it only takes $2.25 to impact one child. And so more information and reminders will be coming out about that, but I hope that you all mark your calendars and plan to make a contribution that's significant to you to help more Kiwanis clubs and impact more children through the wonderful service projects that we do. So thank you so much for letting me share more about it, and if anyone has any questions, please.
You'll let us know how to contribute.
Of course, yep, I'll send, some links and information. So, yeah, but thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Yes, it's been great.
Well, thanks, Mary. I know we'll be happy to be a part of that campaign and really look forward to helping out. All right, now I get to introduce our speaker today, Sara Marshall, the Executive Director of Teach Indy Now, which we definitely need. As an Indianapolis-based not-for-profit, they help unleash our local teachers' potentials. In her role, Sara oversees strategic vision, partnerships, operations, and fundraising and community engagement. For the last 17 years, she has been a math teacher and director at the New Teacher Project and the senior director of talent at the Mind Trust. She's an alumni of Indiana Latino Institute's Latino 2020 Leadership Circle, the Diversity in Leadership Cohort 3, board chair for Butler University's College of Education Dean's Advisory Board, and a board member for Teachers Treasures and the Aspire Higher Foundation. She played college volleyball and earned her bachelor's and master's degrees from Butler. So, and then learned that she's a transplant from California, Sonoma. So, yeah. All right, welcome, Sara.
Yeah, thank you so much,
very
Eric.
much.
Thanks so much, everyone, for having me and for all the work that you do working with kids. That's the most important thing, really. That's why I'm here. So, before I do a little bit of more of an intro, you'll learn very quickly I'm a former teacher, right? So that's going to come across. When I say teaching, what comes to mind? Just shout it out. When I say teaching,
Hard work.
Hard work.
Homework.
Homework. Ooh. Okay.
Recess.
Recess. I'm here for that. Square pizza, right? Square pizza.
Oh, yeah.
You said inspiration.
Yeah.
A role model for children.
Role model for kids, yeah, or students. Anything else come top of mind?
You ain't fit to be ditch diggers. That's one.
All right. Now, what I would love before I start talking is turn to a friend and tell them about your favorite teacher. We all have them.
All right. Mine was Jean Rose. She's the one that said I wasn't fit to be ditch diggers.
That's funny. I'll say my fourth grade teacher, his name was Mr. Long. My favorite teacher.
What made it cool?
He was just a fun, young guy that brought a lot of energy to our classroom.
I'll give you a favorite teacher, Mary.
Class?
There you go. Question. Number
Two sides to every story. Statistics about how much we got done. So they somehow get to that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. No, I'm sure.
So when you ask people typically about their favorite teacher, there's usually some themes. I actually heard a couple one back here. Like lots of times our favorite teachers were actually really hard, right? Because they had really high expectations of us. And I love, Peter, is that your name? Bob. Bob said that his favorite teacher was really hard, but made sure that they knew it, right? What else were there any other things that came up when you were talking about your favorite teachers?
Energy level, high energy level.
High energy level, okay. Anything else?
Politeness, not being overly aggressive with students, trying to understand them,
Yeah.
not trying to make fun of them.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Thinking of a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, my favorite job that I have ever had is the role of teaching. The role of teacher. And I also brought a picture of my favorite teacher that I will show you here in a minute. This is my abuela. This is why I do the work that I do. She was a classroom teacher, a bilingual assistant for a very long time. And everything that you all are saying is exactly what she exemplified. She was really stern and tough, but she loved on her kids and she loved on us. And it's really part of the reason why I went into the classroom. And so I just always like to elevate, because anytime you close your eyes and you think about it, we always have a favorite teacher. Right? Everyone has a favorite teacher. We also probably have some teachers that we're like, oh, I don't really want to think about that one. But everyone has a favorite teacher that was an influence in their life. And every day I'm blessed in my role to get to work with teachers. So as mentioned, I'm Sara Marshall. I'm the executive director of Teach Indy. We are a local nonprofit here, and we focus our efforts in Marion County on this, like, how do we empower teachers as leaders? We know that they're leaders in their classrooms, but we also know that they can be so much more and continue to be great leaders in their work. I did bring some handouts just about kind of the current state of teaching that I'm going to use kind of throughout the conversation. But really, Teach Indy's work is to try to impact teacher retention, because at a time such as this, man, do we need teachers more than ever. We kind of focus our programming in 3 key areas. The first is building community, not unlike what you all are doing today. We really focus on how do we build a diverse, teacher-centered community where people can find relationships, where they can meet people maybe that teach the same thing that they do, or maybe work in a completely different school so that they can learn together. The second thing that we do is we think about how to empower teachers as problem solvers. I think that there's no greater human in solving a problem than giving it to a teacher. Really smart, and they have to be thinking constantly about serving 30 kids at any given time. So they're really creative in their problem solving. And then the third thing that we think a lot about is how do we elevate the voices of teachers and get them into seats that they might not otherwise find themselves in, so that they can showcase their leadership. And so today I thought I would talk to you just a little bit about teachers, the state of teaching currently in Indianapolis and specifically in Marion County. And I want to start off by saying, like, there's some really good news out there. The first is we are seeing an increase in the number of teachers that are actually going into ed prep programs that we have not seen in recent years. Now, it's not huge jumps that we need to fill every spot, but we're seeing an increase. That's huge. The second thing that, and I believe this is on slide 4, I'll use my notes just so that I make sure. Oh, and actually, let me back up and say, like, let me give you some information about teaching and why it's so important to have excellent teachers. When we think about teaching, what we know is that teachers are the greatest in-school factor for student outcomes. They're more critical than the building that students learn in. They have a greater impact than the school leader. The teacher is the single greatest indicator of student success. We also know that when students have great teachers, they're more likely to go to college, right? They're more likely to save into retirement, and they're more likely to have higher salaries over their lifetime. That's the impact of just one great teacher. The last thing I'll say is we also know that when we have teachers that share the backgrounds of our kiddos in particular, we have greater academic gains, we have better behavioral outcomes, and we actually have better just like social outcomes than a lot of other programs, including things like high dosage tutoring. If you're out in education, we're talking a lot about tutoring these days. Actually having teachers that share racial background, that's as important as effective tutoring. So now let me get into some stats about things that are great. We're seeing an increase in the number of teachers that are going into teacher prep programs. That's a win. In Marion County, we also saw an increase in teacher retention this past year from 23 to 24, which is great. We're at nearly 70% of our teachers are being retained in Marion County schools. That's up from about 65% in 2023. And again, that was up from 2022. So we're moving in a good direction there. What I will say is that's challenging is we're seeing some lower data around satisfaction. So our teachers these days are really burnt out, they're very stressed. And so we're seeing about 65% of teachers are indicating that they're satisfied in their career. And the thing that's concerning to me is 56% of them in that age 34 and under are indicating that they're satisfied. That's a problem that we all should be paying attention to. So that is really kind of where our work comes into play. We really try to think about how might we change that narrative or how might we work with teachers. So I wanted to just share a little bit about one program that we have, which is been a year-long program that we've been doing in Lawrence Township. It's called the Reimagining the Teacher Role. And on slide, let me make sure, follow along with you. On slide 5, I believe it is. Yep, this one right here. You'll see some quotes about our one of our programs. So to give you some kind of background, what we've done is over the past year, we've worked with teams of teachers and have taken them through a design thinking process. How many of you have ever gone through and done any design thinking? Anyone kind of know that? Yeah. So design thinking is this really creative process where you try to like empathize and try to get at the root of the challenge that's happening. You do a lot of empathy interviewing, you collect a lot of data, and then you kind of get into an iterative process of trying to solve a challenge, but really through a human-centered lens. So how do we this is used in business, it's used in things like engineering and also in sales, but it's not often that it's used in schools. So we spent the last year in Lawrence Township working with teams of teachers, going through some design thinking to identify challenges in their schools so that we can increase retention. That's really the goal. And now we're looking to scale that because we think we are on to something. And I've got some quotes there for you to see, just some of the things that came out of our work. So the first thing that we heard in regards to retention from teachers is our teachers really value professional experiences where they are empowered in leadership. They really do. And that's not uncommon to other industries, right? Where we get to give them opportunities, but when they're empowered to be seen as leaders and to go through a leadership training, teachers really thrive in that environment. You'll see a quote there, I think it's in orange, from one of our participants talking about just like how powerful it is when teachers get to go through leadership opportunities. The second thing that we heard that increases retention based on our work with teachers was that teachers really crave the opportunity to collaborate and build community with other teachers. If you think about a traditional school day for teachers, it's one teacher, 30 kiddos or 20 kiddos. There's not always enough time to do a lot of collaboration. So this opportunity really, we pulled them out of a classroom but had it covered and made sure that they had time for that collaboration and a lot of that communication. And I always said the interesting thing was they would say that they got to collaborate a lot or they worked on communication, but it was always with their young people. What they're missing is an opportunity to collaborate with other adults. So that's something else that they said. They need more time to do that in schools for increased retention. The third, and you'll see a quote in blue, talks a little bit about when teachers are elevated and are asked to solve problems, we saw their confidence skyrocket. And it wasn't just confidence in communication or collaboration, but actually they became more confident in their classrooms when they were delivering math or social studies or reading. So the ability to just kind of be developed increased the opportunities and the great work that they were already doing in their classroom. The fourth thing that I think is really critical is teachers are the most purpose-driven people I've ever seen. They really love what they do. And most of them say that on a regular basis. And they want to leave the space better than they found it. They just love coming in and saying, this is good, and how do I make it great? My kids are doing well, how do I make it better? And so this opportunity, I think, really helped our teachers to understand the importance of when you give them a space and time to do that work, great things can happen, and the school will be better for it. So on the whole, what we're really trying to advocate for now across Marion County and beyond is that kind of thought bubble that's right there in the middle, which is how can we as leaders, how can we as people that care about education encourage schools to carve out time for teachers to do some of this creative thinking? How do we make sure that we're giving them the opportunity to build relationships across disciplines with other adults, to take on complex challenges and build systems that work for everybody, kids, teachers, community, etc. So that's really what we're working towards. Let me think if there's anything else. Let me pause there for any questions about anything that I just mentioned.
How important is it for, in this day and age, for teachers to be aware of their own education and what they're advocating? For example, in some of the problems we had last year at some of the universities, the teachers themselves didn't have a balance of what the pros and cons of various issues were. So, as far as what you do, the more you can educate teachers to choose something and not be about history and about government and about work. You know how important that is for the students to be aware, so that when they go to vote, when they're over, they know what's going on in the country.
Yeah, it's a great point. So one of the things that I would say is while we don't go specific to a specific content area like that, what this program and what our work is really meant to do is to foster conversations and to make sure, to your point, that we're talking about all the possibilities. So when we're solving a challenge, we look at, there's probably 8 different ways to solve a challenge. What's the best one in this instance, but there might be a better solution later. So I think the work that we're doing is really trying to do what you're sharing, which is how do you bring people together, make sure that people understand multiple sides of a challenge, and then move forward in a really effective way. So yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, thank you.
30% that aren't redoing, do you know why? What the biggest reason for that is?
It's such a great question. I would say it's a couple of things. One, I'll say this, teacher pay is obviously always something that is out there. I'm gonna put a star on that because actually in our research, we had a lot of teachers say that working conditions, the pay was not nearly as challenging as some of the working conditions. They said the pay, I would continue to take the pay as it is if some of my working conditions were just a little bit better. Things like needing more time to collaborate was one of them. Things like knowing exactly when you put a new initiative on a team of teachers, what should they not do, if that makes sense? They want to make sure that they're doing the best work that they can. So I think that is a second thing. And then the third thing is our school systems not allowing them to be whole humans. And what I mean by that is, if you're a teacher and you have dentist appointment. I have a dentist appointment. I have to take a whole day off for a dentist appointment, right? And that seems a little bit, they're not able to just take maybe a couple of hours, get that filled, et cetera. So working conditions was actually like the number one, kind of more than even the pay, which was kind of interesting. Now, obviously, we're not a monolith, so lots of teachers probably have lots of different reasons, but those are some of the ones that stood out to us in our study.
The advent of the charter schools, does it have any specific implications to their satisfaction, or is that, I mean, it seems like teachers have to compete more now than they used to, as opposed to just teaching.
Yeah, so what I would say is, regardless of school type, whether it's charter or public, what we're seeing is because there's just so many job vacancies, it's really a teacher's market at this point, which creates a competition that is maybe in some ways positive for teachers because they have some choice, but in that regard, it can be detrimental to our kids, right? So I don't know that it's any one particular school system or type of school. In some instances, there can be some more flexibility in some of those smaller schools that have come up, but I think in general, regardless of school type, we're still seeing like similar conditions in lots of different types of schools and competition for teachers because there's more vacancies than there are teachers doing their role. Yeah.
I have a lot of friends that I went to college with that were so eager to pursue education and made wonderful teachers, and I don't think lasted definitely not more than 5 years in the education system. I think that's so sad. But the main reason they list is burnout. It's a huge emotional toll to teach kids from really hard backgrounds. Certain school districts have kids from higher incomes, and the school has more resources, and they're able to recruit more teachers because of those conditions. But the schools that have kids with the most need, it seems like they have the hardest time retaining and recruiting quality teachers. What does your organization see as the solution to that gap and just the need and socioeconomics of students and quality teachers?
Yeah, I think one of my favorite parts of my job is that I work across all different types of schools. So in Marion County, we do mostly work in the public school system, but we've now engaged with a couple private schools as well. I would say that you are absolutely right that we have schools that are experiencing disproportionate types of learning environments and different retentions. Retention looks really different at different schools and different school systems. I think while we can't take on the whole system, I think this is why this work that we're doing specifically in schools around helping empower teachers to say, here's what I need in order to be happy, healthy, and whole in my school. It might look very different than the school down the street. So how do we help teams of teachers elevate strategies that might work? Because again, to your point, a school in Carmel might look really different than where my son goes to school in Pike Township, right? So how do we empower the teachers to be kind of key in the voice, that leaders aren't making the decisions for why teachers stay? Let's let teachers tell us what they need in order to stay. Yep.
Is there any data that you have on when parents are not supportive of the teacher? When I grew up, if you get trouble at school, you're gonna get trouble at home. Chiani was right or not.
Yeah.
We don't find that today.
Yeah.
So is there an impact of that?
Yeah. I don't know that I have a lot of data specifically to that, and it did come up as like support. I think I did leave a statistic even on this paper, and it's not directly to parents, but it's just in general, teachers feeling like people don't respect the profession, whether that's parents or community stakeholders, et cetera. I do think that the one thing I used to be a teacher coach, so I used to coach teachers, and I constantly had to remind my teachers that our parents are sending us their absolute best every day, right? Nobody is like, hold on a second, let me keep this kid at home. They're sending us our best, and it's our job as teachers, and when we were working with teachers, to make sure that they're building really good relationships with parents as much as possible, so that hopefully that doesn't happen. It still does. But as much as we can, how do we make sure that teachers have really good relationships with their parents and that they're on the same team? How do we really move that needle forward is where we spend a lot of time.
Do you do education on superintendents and principals so that the word from it's reasonable gets down to
Yeah.
This is what you're supposed to be doing again for certain issues?
Yeah. So our space is mostly in teacher retention and teacher working conditions, and so what we have been doing, we're actually getting ready to produce a case study on the work that we did that will roll up to superintendents and assistant superintendents and then school principals, et cetera. And we try to send them data on best practices in teacher retention. So we try really hard to make sure that we're giving out sound research-based best practices to work with today's students.
Have you also reached out to professionals, like lawyers, doctors, architects, whatever, to come in that work in the schools to maybe more out of the high school to try to stimulate success?
No, so that's not what we have done, but it is a recommendation that we always have for schools. So that's been important. And actually, and I'm going to answer your question too. The last thing, I always like to leave people with like, what can you do, right? What can you do from your seat? So I think the last slide that I have, I kind of left a couple things that I think we can be doing. One of them is that exact thing. Like, how do we engage with schools in a really authentic way? Whether that is bringing in staff, bringing in volunteers, making connections, especially at that high school level with workforce. As we're doing a lot of talk about workforce, how do we do more to get companies engaged in schools?
I would say Key Club and Kiwanis is doing their part.
Yes, absolutely. I agree. And then I wanted to make sure we took your
Yeah,
question.
question was, how do you interact, or how the teachers interact with you on a regular basis? Or do they, do you wait for a study to come about?
Yep. So in our work, we have a couple things that are really open in general for teachers across Marion County to engage with us. One of them is a conference that we host every year. I love our conference because teachers lead sessions, which empowers them as leaders and showcases what's working in schools. So I love that. And then we also have a citywide virtual community, and then we also do in-person meetings so that folks can connect. Maybe I'm the only social studies teacher at my small school in Speedway, and I don't have a person to collaborate with. Let me talk to somebody that's across town in Lawrence Township. So we provide a virtual space for teachers to be able to kind of build bridges and make sure that they're connected. So those are kind of our open all calls, if you will, for engagement. And then our cohort work is specific to schools. We work directly with school-based teams. So that's a little bit more selective, I guess I would say. But yeah, there's lots of opportunities for folks to engage with us and to learn.
So this isn't to your original question, but it's in the news. So our incoming US president wants to get rid of the federal education department. Has your organization, and we don't know what that's gonna look like.
Yeah.
So has your organization looked strategically at what might be coming down the line, or do you think it can impact what you're doing at all?
Yeah. I think all of us are a little bit bracing for impact and doing our best to make sure we're connecting with schools directly to understand how they are moving with the changing times. I think the same is true with local. I think we spend more time thinking about local politics than national politics, but we know that the larger Department of Education question is going to be a big one. We don't receive federal funding, so from a funding perspective, it doesn't impact us as much, but we're really trying to figure out what does this mean for teachers specifically. And we do the most by talking directly to districts to say, what are you thinking about and how are you supporting your teachers? But thanks for the question. So, yeah.
Well, another thought that I had, corporations, really foundations have a vested interest in seeing that our state has educated people.
Yep.
And if the federal government is lax on, or state government is lax on,
Sure.
then you have to go to that kind of an organization, and there's more than that.
Yeah.
To subsidize what you would otherwise need for quality, because the brain drain will leave here.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, and we do work with some of our corporate partners, and I know our schools have great relationships in particular with a lot of them.
I think you're going to have to step that one up.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Well, I did leave you with just a couple of recommendations. The first is think about ways that you can engage with schools. That's one of the big things, is schools are always looking for volunteers, visitors, etc. So I think that's the first thing. The second, and again, I think you all already do so much with youth, but I always try to elevate a couple of opportunities, things like Big Brothers, Big Sisters, great opportunity to work with young people. Also programs like Circle City Readers, there's lots of other reading programs out there that we think are great. And then the last thing is to just think about how you can support organizations that are already supporting teachers. I know Margaret Sheehan was here a couple weeks ago from Kiwanis, they're a great partner of ours. Orgs like, of course, ours, I'm gonna shout out ours, but also places like Teach Plus and Melanated Leaders are two other great organizations that I always just like to share a little bit about when I'm speaking about our work. So I think with that, I'm probably over time, but I just want to say thank you for all that you all do to support kids, and it makes our job of supporting teachers who are supporting kids that much better. So I just want to say a huge thank you.
Sarah, thank you very much. That was terrific, and obviously it hits right on the spot, a sweet spot of where we have a lot of interest and where we really want to focus our efforts. So we will be making a donation in your honor to the Mary Rigg Neighborhood Center, a thriving community resource in Southwest Indianapolis that provides youth enrichment services, including after-school and summer day camp programming, and supports families seeking hope, help, and better opportunities.
Thank you so
So,
much. Thank you all.
appreciate
Thank you
that.
so much.
I just want to call everybody's attention to on January 13th, the Versity Blood Center of Indiana issued an emergency plea for blood donations due to the winter weather and some of the rise in illness have significantly disrupted donations, resulting in less than a day's supply of critical blood types for patients in our local hospitals. So I know I'm O positive, so they usually want my blood, and so I'll be stepping up to do that. So I encourage others to do the same if you can. And since I usually close the meeting with a One America sign quote, and this one seems appropriate for the way I've been working today. Procrastination is a dish best served eventually.